Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Diet Diaries. I can't remember what episode it is. Maybe 156. I should have checked, but I forgot. Either way, it doesn't really matter. I don't know why I always feel the need to say what episode number it is. Although it's crazy that there's been that many. We are coming up in the next week or two on the 3-year anniversary of the Diet Diaries, which was formerly called the Movement Diaries. If you have been a long-time listener, I changed the name about a year ago to kind of reflect the evolution of my work and coaching and more of what we talk about here. So real talk, I'm recording this on Monday, November 27th. It's the Monday after the Thanksgiving kind of long weekend, and I am not in the mood to record this today. I'm keeping it real with you guys. I had a whole topic planned out for today around body image. I had notes made and I looked at it. I'm like, oh my God, I do not want to talk about this today. I don't want to record this. I don't have the energy. Like, it's just something that takes a lot of energy and kind of insight and thought. So I'm like, it's Monday and I pretty much always record on Mondays and I would never not publish a podcast, right? I'm a week in advance. So today's episode is with my former client, Carissa. But I have to get next week's done. But I'm like, not in the mood. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to talk about not being in the mood. I'm going to keep it real with you guys because it actually is like a very kind of real life in the moment example of what this work is. And when I say this work, whether you're talking about exercise or food or how you talk to yourself when you're getting dressed or when you look in the mirror, there's going to be a lot of times where you don't feel like doing the thing that you need to do, right? I record this podcast every Monday. I publish an episode every Monday. In the last 3 years, I have skipped maybe 3 total weeks, I think, because this podcast is very important to me personally. It's important to me because the way it helps me connect with you. And it's important to me because I know it's a resource to the people who listen, who are relying on it as a way to get support and stay connected and feel seen and heard. And so even though I don't feel like doing it, I'm going to do it anyway, right? We have to show up and stay consistent, even when it's inconvenient, even when we don't feel like it. Because if we just only did the things that we needed to do or wanted to do when we felt like it, we would literally never do them, right? We would always take kind of the easier way, the way that takes less effort. That's just not realistic. And so often with like food and exercise, look, I don't feel like it. I don't feel like meal prepping. I don't feel like eating protein. I don't feel like planning out. I don't feel like going to the store. I don't feel like making veggies. I just want to go to like the drive-thru. I just want to go pick up a sandwich. I just want to like eat the snacks that are in the cabinet. Me too. Right? Me too, guys. Like, I'm with you. I didn't feel like recording this podcast today. I am doing it anyway because it's in alignment with my values. Right? I talk about that a lot, and sometimes I feel like I don't do a great job of explaining what that means. And I was like, this is a great example, right? I am showing up and I am recording this podcast today for all the reasons I listed out like 3 minutes ago. It's important to me because it's an important part of my work. It's important to me that I know I'm showing up for my community of people. Like, I know with the podcast, it's a little one-sided, but I know there's listeners. I know you guys are out there. Like, and so I have a relationship with you. I feel connected to you. And I value that. That means something to me. And so I am going to put out a podcast for you because I care about you, because I care about this work, and because we can't just do things when we feel like it. Like literally, like nothing would ever get done. It would be totally against my values of around my work ethic, around community, around connection, to just not do a podcast. Like, I don't feel like I'm just not going to do it. Like, no, that's not, and yeah, is there sometimes when I need a break and want a break? Yes, of course. That wasn't today was about. This wasn't like, oh my God, I need a break. This is like, I'm just not in the mood to do this, right? And you have to know yourself, right? There's a difference between being like, you know what? I need a few days off of working out, or I'm so exhausted, I just can't get to the store. And there's a difference between that and saying, I just don't feel like it. Right? You know the difference. And that's what self-compassion is about, right? It's accepting the things that we need to kind of hold space for and maybe can't control. And then it's taking action on the things that we can control, right? So I didn't feel like talking about what I had planned today. The other alternative to that, it's not just do that or do nothing, right? I showed up. I'm like, I can talk about something. I can show up. I'm going to keep it super short, hopefully. I always say that, and I never do. Just because I don't feel like talking about what I had planned for today doesn't mean I am not going to show up and talk about nothing, right? I'm here. I'm talking about really in this moment, this lived experience that I'm having and how I'm working through it. And I'm working through it not by like being rigid with myself, not by being unkind to myself, not by saying like, oh my God, Renee, there you go. You're so lazy. Like you're such a loser if you don't do this. Like, oh my God, not by being mean to myself, but by thinking about my values and thinking about why this podcast is important to me. And that is what got me to do it. And so when you are struggling with the things that you don't feel like doing, whether it's doing your workout or meal prepping for the week or getting protein on your plate or not, going to the cabinet and grabbing snacks like every moment that you feel the urge, you've got to pause and think about like, why am I doing or not doing this thing, right? Whatever the thing is, right? And how am I going to feel when I do or don't do this? And like, what is this really connected back to, right? Like, if you skip a workout because you don't feel like it, like that's not in alignment with your values of self-care or health or kindness or commitment or whatever your values are, right? It's just like, I don't feel like it. And then you're going to feel like shit. If I had not recorded a podcast today and skipped an episode because I didn't feel like it, I would have felt terrible. I would have felt terrible because I let myself down. I would have felt terrible because I let the people that I have created and share a community with, I would have let them down. Like, and that's not cool. We have to have discipline. We have to have structure, right? Like I record podcast episodes on Mondays. Yeah, sometimes I'll change the day, definitely if I need to. Like I'll give myself flexibility. But tomorrow I have a really packed day of client calls and volunteering. And on Wednesdays I edit, right? So I know that I need to get these things done. This is how my schedule goes. I work for myself. There's no one on top of me saying, Jordana, you got to do this. Like I create that for myself. So that structure is very important. And structure is important, right? Like go to the store on Sundays, meal prep as soon as you get home, whatever it is, right? You work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning, right? Not just on the days that you feel like it or don't feel like it, right? You're likely to never do it. Things that take effort, that take work, that take time, that take energy are naturally going to be harder to do, right? It's not hard to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. It's not hard to like scroll on your phone and online shop or like, get sucked into the black hole of Instagram. No, because it doesn't take a lot of effort or energy. It ends up using up a lot of mental energy that we then it's like we don't want to go do the things we actually need to do that would help us because we've kind of wasted some of that mental energy on some of that stuff, which is sort of an interesting, a little bit of a sidebar. But you've got to show up for yourself even when you don't feel like it. That's really the bottom line. And how do you do that? Again, you don't do that by being mean to yourself, by calling yourself names, by punishing yourself. And you don't always do it. It's finding that balance between what is structure and what is rigidity, right? Yes, I almost always record on Mondays, but some days I'll move the day if I want to. Again, it's being honest with yourself and knowing the difference between like, I really need a break. I'm exhausted. I need some time off. And the difference between that and I'm not in the mood, I don't feel like it. They are not the same thing. And you have to get brutally honest with yourself about that. If you are constantly saying to yourself, like, I don't feel like meal prepping, I don't feel like going to the store, I don't feel like eating protein, I don't feel like thinking about protein, then you can't be upset when nothing ever changes. Like, I know that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. Like, you've got to show up for yourself even when you don't feel like it. Hard stop. And the way you do that, again, is by getting really honest with yourself about whether you don't feel like it or there's something else going on. And assuming that it's that you don't feel like it, which is what the issue is most of the time, you've got to be clear on what your values are, right? And this isn't like you have to have a whole, like, heady conversation with yourself around, well, like, I really value commitment and generosity and kindness. Like, no, you need to know your 3 core values about what makes you you, right? I've talked about this. I've done other episodes about this, right? If you know, let's say you're working on fat loss, okay? If you're listening to me, protein is going to be part of that, okay? Right? Having protein at as many meals as possible is going to be part of that. If you are not willing to go to the store to get that stuff, or you don't want to take the time to kind of like plan out or think about like what are kind of, 2 or 3 lunches I'm going to have this week because you don't feel like it, then you can't be upset when you're not losing fat. And I kind of just went like a little bit of a tangent. So I was talking about values. I'm going to pull it back into that. But if you're saying you want to lose fat and you know these are the things you need to do and you don't do them, then that's not valuing your self-care. It's not valuing your health. It's not valuing your commitment that you've made to yourself or self-kindness. I mean, you could really like connect it back to like almost any value, to trusting yourself, to being honest with yourself, right? You do the things you don't feel like doing because they are connected back to who you are and how you want to be showing up as a person, right? Like to your integrity, to your character, right? If it was about someone else, you'd show up for them, right? You'd be much less likely to let someone else down, but we're happy to let ourselves down left and right when we're not in the mood to do the thing that we need to do. So you've got to get clear on your values and you've got to use them as a check-in. And when you notice yourself, you catch yourself saying, I don't feel like doing that, that's where you've got to pause and say, hold on a second. Like, if I don't do this, how am I going to feel? I've got to do it anyway because this is what's important to me and this is how I'm going to make progress. And it doesn't have to be 100% of the time, but it's got to be consistent, right? And consistent is most of the days, most of the time. So if you are not getting the outcome that you want, if you are working on fat loss or you are working on, maybe you've got like high cholesterol or high blood pressure and you're exercising more like zone 2 stuff and you're trying to work on like improving your biomarkers, or you are really unhappy with your body image and you're like speaking really mean to yourself and you're hating getting dressed and you're not like working on the skills that go with that. If you're not getting the outcomes that you want, you need to look at how often you're doing the things that you know you need to be doing. And if they're not that often, why are they not that often? Yeah, you're not going to feel like doing it. Most of the time, you're not going to feel like doing the thing. And so that kind of brings up another conversation of, well, how can we make it more enjoyable? I actually really love doing this podcast. This very rarely happens, but sometimes it does. But there are going to be things that do come up more often. I don't always feel like doing my workouts. I don't always feel like, going to the store and like shopping for protein and making sure I have my stuff around. But I have certain things that are automated, which makes it easier. Again, these are all like separate topics, but really, because I want to wrap this up and keep it short, what I really wanted to just share with you is that I didn't feel like doing this podcast today and I did it anyway. You have to show up for yourself and stay consistent, even when you don't want to, and even when it's inconvenient, because that's how progress happens. And because I know that if you're listening, you want to be someone who's taking action in alignment with your values. And that looks like showing up even when you don't feel like it. And there is a lot between doing the thing that you really don't want to do and doing nothing. There's always something in between there. You can always do something. So if you find yourself getting caught up a lot and I don't feel like it, maybe the thing that you're trying to do is too big. Maybe you need to lower the barrier to entry and set up that thing as something smaller on a regular basis, right? Maybe it's meal planning for just a couple of days, or having protein in the house for like one meal each day instead of all 3, or it's working out for less time or less often to start, right? Like you've got to make the thing doable. At one point, one of my former business coach said to me, oh, would you ever want to do 2 podcasts a week? I'm like, no, it's too much. Like, I know I can do 1 a week consistently, right? So it's like, you've got to be really honest with yourself about the things that you're setting up and what you can do. That is part of this too. Thank you for listening. Under 15 minutes, hopefully, once I add on the intro and the outro. Thank you for listening. I think I just said that. I really appreciate you guys. I'm glad this is kind of a shorter one. Things are kind of crazy and busy right now. Attention is pulled in a lot of different directions. So I so appreciate your time and your support.